Hello, good morning, how are you? Well, today it's Friday. We're finishing the week with a new and I hope that's short, but you know that I tend to speak a lot, but I think that today's lesson is going to be a little bit shorter. Well, yesterday I had a video conference with Primero D and I was in this seat, so you already know about it, but Primero D probably this is the first time that you see me here, or not, I don't know, because I think that I recorded one video here on the sofa instead of in the desk. And I have a friend helping me with the video today. Primero de also met Ipo this morning. So Primero C, here it is Ipo. This is my pet. It is really a cushion, but normally I have it in the way of a hypo. So he's going to be here taking care that I teach the lesson wonderful. Okay? Nice, Ipo? You listen, okay? Well, today's lesson is going to be to talk about plant reproduction. Even though we have been seeing things together about it, we have almost studied everything, but well, you have a point in the lesson talking about it, so I wanted to revise everything with you and see some things which are new. And as I said to some of you in this video conference this week, next week we are going to be doing a test, a quizzes related with the lesson. That is going to be next Friday. Okay, so from today in 1 week. Remember that you can have all your notes and your book with you, so don't worry about that. But it's nice that you take a revision of everything because it will be easier for you to answer the questions. Okay. So what is left for us is to study today plant reproduction. Then on Monday, I'm going to talk about plant interaction and how plants adapt to the environment, but it is a very short part of the lesson. So on Wednesday with Primero C and on Thursday with Primero D, we will make a video call to revise everything together with questions and answers as we have been doing during these days. And then next Friday, we will have the final test, or I mean questionnaire, however you want to call it, or exam if you want, but well, it's not really a proper exam. You know that I'm going to grade it as a questionnaire or a test. So that's it. Let's see, because I have many interesting things to tell you. I think that you're enjoying the lesson and that all this plant world that sometimes we believe that it is a little bit boring, it's being interesting for you. And I'm happy to hear your feedback about that. So let's see if today's lesson is interesting for you or not. Let's go for it. Ipo, listen, okay? Pay attention. If you hear something strange, it's him that is malbehaving or something. Okay, so as usual, let's go to revise where we are. We have almost studied all the lesson. We started with the introduction. We have studied the two groups of plants. Remember the chart that we did together with the main characteristics of the four of them. That is very easy for you to remember. Then we have seen plant nutrition when we studied the photosynthesis. Next Monday, we're going to study interaction, but as we have been talking about plant reproduction, I prefer to go to this point today, okay? So we have been studying really the sexual reproduction of plants, which is really the most important one and the one that it is like more spread in the plant kingdom. Okay, so plants normally reproduce sexually, but they have the ability of reproducing asexually as well, and that's what we are going to study, like the new thing for today. Then we will revise the sexual process that you already know and control properly. So how can the plants reproduce asexually? Remember that asexual reproduction means that it requires just one parent, and that the offspring in that case is going to be exactly the same as that parent. Okay, that's the key. So how can plants do this process of asexual reproduction? Hello. Okay, so asexual reproduction in plants is going to take place in two ways. Okay, it can happen let's say in a natural way, so plants can reproduce asexually in nature, or it can happen in an artificial way. Anytime that we're talking about something artificial, this means that we human beings are helping this process. So we are reproducing plants asexually, for example, when we take a part of the plant, we put it in water, we wait until it develops roots, and then we plant that tiny plant again. that is asexual reproduction. We're really doing clones of these plants, okay? And that is something that I'm sure that your parents do with the plants that you have at home, because sometimes they become too big. So our parents normally, well, I do that as well right now. We cut a part of the plant, we place it in water, it develops some roots, and once it has the roots, you can plant it again in the soil. So that's asexual. We're just taking a part of it and producing a new plant, okay? But that's something that we do. Plants can do that in a natural way, okay? And they have different structures to do that. Your book talks about 4 of them, and they are the most important ones, so these are the same ones that I'm going to mention. These 4 structures that they can develop are called rhizomes, los rizomas, tubers, los tubérculos, stolons, los estolones en castellano, and bulbs, los bulbos. Okay, so let me show you what they are. Rhizomes are subterranean stems. Los rizomas son tallos subterráneos which are going to be growing underground, okay? And once in a while, they generate a new plant. You see? So probably this is the main plant, but the rhizome grows underground, and once in a while, new plants appear. That means that all the plants that you have on the surface, they are really the same plant because they are joined underground by this rhizome. Okay? So it is a subterranean stem that once in a while develops a new plant. Then we have the estolons, okay? Estolons. Sorry, for an example of rhizome, for example, is ginger, el jengibre. Then it is also a very typical structure in ferns. Los helechos se suelen reproducir así también. Then estolons, they are different to rhizomes in one very simple way. They are also stems, but instead of being underground, they are aerial, so they are above the ground. And this is very typical in strawberries. If you have seen strawberry plants, they sometimes develop a new stem that goes far away from the main plant, and whenever it feels that it is going to be comfortable for it, it develops some roots and a new tiny plant. You see? So they are all joined by these estolons, which in this case, as I insist, they are above the ground. So all these, in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4 plants, they are really the same because they are joined by these estolons, okay? Very typical in strawberries, as you see. I mean, you have to be really careful with them because they start expanding, and they can colonize a lot of land. Good? So we have rhizomes, we have estolons, then we have tubers, los tubérculos. Can you tell me which one is the main example of tubers? Exactly, las patatas, yes, potatoes or sweet potatoes. They are also las batatas o patata dulce o boniato in Spanish. They are also an example of a tuber. So in that case, tubers are, how to say, they are, sorry, or stem or roots that become really big underneath below the soil, underground, and they accumulate substances of reserve, okay? If you take a potato, sometimes when you have it a lot of time at home, it starts developing roots. So if you take a part of this potato, you don't even have to place the whole potato again underground. If you take just a tiny part and you place it underground and you take care of it and you water it, what are you going to have? A new plant again. So this is very nice because, for example, my grandparents in Galicia, they always planted potatoes. And this is awesome because if one year you have a wonderful potato collection, o sea, si tenemos una buena cosecha de patatas that they taste wonderfully, what you should do is that you should take some of them and keep them to plant them next year, because in that way you're going to get the same plants as the year before and probably the same type of sweet and tasty potatoes. Okay? So this is what our grandparents used to do. They plant potatoes or sweet potatoes or whatever. They collect the ones of that season, but they keep some of them to be able to plant them next year. It is very strange that potatoes are planted by seeds. They do develop flowers and some tiny fruits and some seeds, but I have always planted potatoes by using a part of this tuber that they develop underground, okay? And that's asexual. What you're doing is reproducing the same plant that you had last year, okay? Good. And finally, your book talks about bulbs, los bulbos. In this case, the main example is onions. Okay, these are other type of of. You have here some more examples. I like this one. I haven't seen it. Tulips, for example, are also bulbs that you know. Exactly. So they are also like roots or stems which are growing, accumulating substances which are going to be of reserve. And from these bulbs, new plants can grow as well. Okay? So these are the four main types of asexual reproduction in plants, but we should not forget that in the case of mosses and ferns, we have also seen that they can reproduce by spores that they produce in the sporangiums, in the sorus, if you remember, in the case of ferns, okay? So spores or all these different variations of the stem and roots that allows them to grow new plants. Good till here? Remember, asexual reproduction, we are kind of producing clones of the same plant, okay? Natural or artificial if we do it at home. Nice, and then the type of sexual reproduction that we have studied, I mean, you have a cycle here, but I cannot make it very big, so I'm going to use the one that I was trying to use with Primero de the other day. Here you have it, finally, in a big shape. So remember that we have seen the flower, and in the case of the normal flowers, normally have the two types of reproductive organs within them, both the stamens, which are the male parts, and the pistil, which is the female part. The sexual reproduction in plants has like three main stages, okay? The first one is pollination, la polinización, which is what is taking place right now, okay, in spring. Pollination is the moment in which the anther of the stamen produces the pollen grain. That pollen grain goes to the stigma of the pistil and it is trapped there because of the sticky substances. Okay, that's the pollination, pollinización. The second stage of sexual reproduction would be fertilization, que no se traduce, esto es como el constipation, remember, no se traduce como fertilización, because for us fertilización es fertilización, English with Spanish accent or the other way around. Fertilización for us is to put fertilizers in the ground, es abonar el suelo, ¿no? En nuestro caso, fertilization, la palabra en castellano es fecundación, okay? So that's the second stage of sexual reproduction in plants. And that means that finally the pollen grain joins the ovule. Okay, let's see it in the diagram. So pollination, the pollen grain arrives here thanks to the wind or through the insects, and fertilization occurs when the pollen grain develops these tubes to finally arrive to the ovule in the ovary. Okay, that's fertilization. The very moment in which the pollen grain joins the ovule, what is it going to be produced? The seed production, okay? Then those seeds, let me show you, those seeds which are produced inside the ovary are going to finally be protected by this ovary that transforms by accumulating substances of reserve in what? Exactly, into the fruit. That is how happens. Let me show you this silly but wonderful diagram to represent it. Here you see how the development of a tomato takes place, for example. You have first of all the flower development. Once the flower is open, the bees, for example, in this case, come to help with pollination. Once pollination occurs, fertilization also occurs. The pollen grain joins the ovules and they form the seeds. And finally, you have a tiny fruit which is going to grow from this flower. The ovary transforms, accumulating more and more and more substances of reserve to protect the seeds. And finally, you have a wonderful and fresh tomato to eat. And this would happen with any other type of flowers that you can imagine. In this case, for example, you can see the flowers of strawberries transforming into tiny strawberries. Ah, no, no son strawberries, son moras. Sorry. I was looking at it in the small way. Yeah, son. I never remember how we say moras in English, but well, this is. Let me look for it. How is it called? Blackberry, exactly, because there are so many different types of berries that I always confuse with them. Exactly, blackberries. I was seeing it in a very tiny way here and I wasn't able to recognize it, but they are the blackberries. But well, strawberries would be exactly the same. So this is how sexual reproduction occurs. Let's come back to the diagram 1 second. Remember, pollination arriving to the pistil, fertilization, how the pollen grain finally arrives to the ovule to form as many seeds as ovules are inside, and finally the ovary transforming into the fruit. The final stage of this sexual reproduction process would be what we call germination, which is when the seed, that's what you have been doing with your acorns, okay? When the seed is ready to generate a new plant. And in that case, they need the soil to obtain mineral salts, they need the water, that's what you have been doing with them. That normally occurs in nature in a natural way, of course, but you have been doing that as well. So remember, sexual reproduction, pollination, fertilization, formation of the seed, fruit, and finally, the final stage, germination. Okay? So as you see, plants can have the two different types of reproduction, which is something that we cannot have. We cannot reproduce asexually. We animals, well, not all of us. We'll see in the next lesson that some animals can have the two ways or the two types of reproduction. Talking about humans, we cannot do that, so they are better than us. Okay? So that's it for today. I wanted to revise the process of reproduction. Um, as usual, you can keep working in your notes as you're doing wonderfully. Remember that I will correct your notebooks next week when we finish with the lesson. Remember that the deadline of the Leaves Hand project is today. I think I placed midnight, but take a look to it in the task in Edmodo. And and that's it. I told you that this week I was not going to tell you to do any more homework because I understand that you have to finish with the project, and some of you still have to give me the investigation about gymnosperms. We have corrected that together, but well, there are people who have not given it to me, so remember that you have to give everything that I ask you for, which is not so much, I think. So that's it for today. If I have time, because it's a little bit late in the afternoon, I will try to prepare or to look for some games that you can also play and practice this process with, but very, very tiny. So I don't steal from you a lot of time to finish the project, okay? The ones that still have to finish it. Always a pleasure talking to you. Ipo, how did I do it? He's saying that I was confused with strawberries and blackberries. It's true, but you remember that I don't see very well and I'm not wearing my glasses. I suppose that you are worried. My glasses are always with me, but to be in the computer, they are not very comfortable. So my myopia, my short-sightedness is awful. So I was seeing what it wasn't. I know, Ibo, I know I should wear my glasses. I will try to. Well, I hope that you like the video. I hope that you are, as usual, learning biology but smiling at the same time. That's my main purpose in these virtual lessons, that you feel near the lesson and that you feel comfortable with it. That's it for today. See you next week with a new video as usual on Monday and a video conference at the middle of the week. Okay? But remember that anything that you want to know or that you need, I'm here for you and you can ask me. Okay? Bye bye. Enjoy.